Just like, oh, all right, we're on. We're rolling. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode of Two Sweet Reviews. To start things off, as you can see, we're going to be reviewing and ranking all of the Quentin Tarantino movies, including the latest release of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I am Nathan Smith.
I'm Sam Robbins.
Let's get right into it. So, to start things off, I think it would be good to talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, since it just came out yesterday as of recording this. We went and saw it last night, 10 o'clock showtime. Alright, I don't want to say anything yet. I want to hear your general thoughts first.
On Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah.
Alright, general thoughts. I thought that the movie was really good. I thought the cinematography was great. I thought the dialogue was awesome. The characters felt real, even though two of the three main characters are fictional. And it was a cool kind of like, I guess, tribute to like the golden age of like the westerns in Hollywood, while also kind of respecting this horrible tragedy and kind of turning it into a fairy tale, like a what if story. So it kind of takes the two angles and I think plays them off really well. It's kind of clearly Tarantino had something he wanted to say with this movie. That's how I feel, at least, and I feel like he said it.
And you can tell that he loves that era too. Because and if you go back to all of his past films, he has references to films of that era that he was, dealing with in this movie.
And his last three movies, his three most recent movies have all had something to do with like westerns or cowboys or clearly he very much likes that genre and that era and even that time in Hollywood when those were super big. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what I also loved about the movie is that when you get three heavy-hitting actors like Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Margot Robbie on screen, there can be a real risk of, one of them overshadowing the others or giving too much time to one rather than the other. And this movie didn't do that. They played all of the characters perfectly, and there was enough. They were all fleshed out in their own ways, and I thought they all served the story that was needing to be told. It didn't feel like the actor's pedigree was overshadowing, what the movie was trying to say, what the story was all about.
Well, and there were definitely moments throughout the movie where I'm like, okay, Rick's my favorite character. No, wait, Cliff's my favorite character. No, wait, I really like
that scene in the theater. That's pretty good.
I actually really liked the scene in the theater.
Yeah, me too.
I felt like the theater scene was really good because it shows a lot of her character and the kind of like goals and dreams that she has without her even like saying anything, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Like clearly she gives a shit about what people think of the movie and think of her acting and all that kind of stuff. So and you get all of that expression without a line of dialogue, which is, there's dialogue in the movie that she's watching, but
definitely. And it's kind of interesting to see the difference in her character being an up-and-coming actress, and she just wants to sit there quietly and listen to all the people being receptive to her role and laughing, and then you have that kind of contradicted with Rick, where he's kind
of the grizzled old on a downcline,
and he is not shy about downgrading himself and being like, get it together, man, what the hell are you doing, all that sort of stuff.
So that scene in the trailer was so good when he just line he starts kicking shit and everything. Dude, I love that scene. And then so the way when he's talking to himself in the mirror and the angle he's at, it's pointed at you as the viewer. So it's almost like he's talking to you, but talking to himself, and it's like, Jesus.
No, that was so good, and
I like that
because it was obvious when that day started in the film that he was drunk, like, or hungover or whatever, and then he's like, "Fuck, you drink, you can't just have one, you gotta have 8." He's like, "I'm stopping drinking right now." And
fuck it. And then
takes a drink,
and then gets pissed that he took the drink and throws it out a window.
Yeah, oh man. Oh. Yeah, it's so good. And then talking about other standout scenes is that whole basically dream sequence that Cliff has when he's fixing the antenna. You know, it's not a dream sequence, but he's playing it out in his head.
Yeah. Dude, that scene was great.
Yeah, that was so good.
Because there's no cheesy transition, like a ripple or a wipe or whatever. It just cuts. It just hard cuts. He's back at the set.
So, and part of you thinks like, oh, did he decide to go back there?
Yeah.
Or did? And then it's not until later when
when it cuts back again and he hadn't left.
This is all in his head. He beat the shit out of Bruce Lee, and which is also great.
It's like
the line where he's like, "If I beat you with my bare hands, I go to jail. If you murder anyone with your hands, you go to jail." It's called manslaughter.
Yeah.
That's not exactly what he says, but it's basically
paraphrasing.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, no, I really like how it basically just he plays out the whole scenario in his head and comes to the conclusion of, yeah, it wouldn't have worked out anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then the other standout that I had for this film was that this is kind of, Tarantino hasn't really done a present day film since Death Proof, right? So then we got that cool car chase in Death Proof, but we'll get to that later. But what was really cool to see was, the budget for Death Proof was high, but relatively low for the movies that he does, especially now. And this movie's budget, I don't have a number offhand, but I know that it was a big budget. So they had the budget to do all of those crazy shots with people driving, basically glamour shots of just really absorbing you into the 60s and just getting to feel that and just soak it all in, because he's driving in that nice car. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but Rick's car, and then the camera kind of is low angled and it goes around the car as he's driving. It just stays there for a while and you soak it all in. It's like, man, this is cool. And then they turned all of, well, not like, basically they transformed LA into the 60s era Hollywood, which was really cool, because when he's driving down the roads, it's just, you're right there. And they can do it in wide shots because they have the budget to just transform the whole area.
The whole block.
Yeah, which was, that was really cool to see. And really,
it was super
really neat.
I think the biggest standout for me of that whole transforming modern in LA into the 60s LA or 70s LA, because I guess this would have been 69, so it's closer to 70s.
Like it's at that boiling point. Whereas we should get into it later, but with the Sharon Tate murders, that was kind of like to a lot of people, that was like the pushover point into the new era.
But yeah, so the scene that stood out for me was when all the lights are coming on. You get the neon lights. And all those fucking old ass fucking light displays on buildings and the theaters and restaurants and all that shit. That was cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Because cities don't look like that anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's all LEDs, and maybe even you have one of those digital displays, so it can move or make patterns or whatever. So yeah,
and this is very much a Tarantino film with the dialogue and the way that everything's paced and everything like that. But what makes it a little different until the end, which I want to get into right after, is that it's pretty, I wouldn't say it's a slow burn, because it's not a slow burn. It's super entertaining, but it's just, it's a character film for the first 2 acts. It's not an action film. Like Hateful Eight was a suspense film, but it had a few bits of action in it and stuff, and a lot of gore. But Django and Inglourious Bastards, especially, a lot of action and a lot of you know, exciting, adrenaline-filled moments in those movies. But this one, for the first 2 acts, it's much more character piece, which I really enjoyed.
This one, so this one I noticed felt a lot more like Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
like this
definitely.
felt like old school Tarantino, where you're right, like it's very character driven. And it's all about the characters and the drama they get into, and the dialogue is so key.
Yeah.
And it's not really about, you know, like your Django and Inglourious Bastards and Kill Bill.
Oh yeah, especially Kill Bill.
Where they're a little bit more of action flicks. They still have
Yeah.
the Tarantino-esque, you know, like dialogue and characters and stuff, but there's a lot more focus on how gory can we kill someone.
Yeah.
Which they get into in this movie eventually. But,
Yeah.
like that's actually talking, because I know you said you wanted to get into the ending. Talking about the ending, that was something I noticed right away. As soon as it starts, it's just like, this is Tarantino. Like, this is Tarantino action. This is very classic Tarantino action. It's just, I don't know, the amount of... he's got like a style in how he goes about killing people.
Yeah.
It's just like...
Yeah.
It's just kind of like his own thing. I don't really know how to put words in it, but
well,
you see it. Like, you watch a movie like Kill Bill versus like another, like John Wick, right? They're very similar in the sense
high
of
violence,
high action, revenge stories.
Yeah.
And but like if you watch one, it's like that's clearly Tarantino, and you watch the other, and it's clearly not Tarantino, and it's just like. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to like the way he kills people.
Yeah, no, definitely. And even though the kills were so...
They were pretty visceral,
brutal. Very, you
maybe
know,
less
very
visceral, more brutal.
Very extra, right?
Yeah,
to
they
put
were
it that way.
extremely brutal.
And it's very different from the rest of the movie, but I think what makes it work so well is that because going into it, watching the movie, you're like, how are they going to end up dealing with the actual Sharon Tate murders, right? And leading up to it, it's still very much rooted in reality, just with the exception of, you know, the main characters are fictional and all of the films he's been in are fictional, except they do have, you know, references to like The Great Escape and then Green Hornet. And they actually have that great scene where he's imagining himself in The Great Escape, which was amazing. But then it's still very grounded, right, in what history actually was. And then what I like is that once Rick goes out, confronts the Manson family, and then they decide instead of killing Sharon Tate, they're going to kill Rick Dalton. That's when, like, all right, all bets are off because this is 100% fictional now, so he can go all in, which is amazing. Like, this is the best way to do it because it was just like a flip of a switch. And Tarantino's unleashed, pretty much. Yeah, the flamethrower, the fucking flamethrower.
Whose first thought is there's a bleeding chick in my pool?
Yeah.
I got a flamethrower in the shed over there. Let me go get it. Like, it's kind of ridiculous,
so
but
good.
like it was so. It's kind of like a payoff, right? Because he's the flamethrower with the.
And probably the only other violent scene in the movie, which is that, you know, when he burns all the Nazis. But then you can think of it like, oh, that's fictional, so, you know, it doesn't really count in your idea of what the world of the film is.
Well, I guess there's also the on the ranch punches at the dude.
Oh yeah, but it's still very real.
But that's more grounded.
Yeah, very grounded
in terms of violence.
And for Tarantino, like, it was actually quite reserved for just a fist fight.
It wasn't really a fist fight either.
Yeah, it was just him
Cliff hit
punching
him,
him in
what,
the
2 or
face.
3 times?
Yeah,
3 times,
2 or 3 times, yeah.
So Cliff hits him a few times and then just fix the tire.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah. But, yeah, and then it was such, like, because when that whole thing was going down with Cliff and the wife got involved too, she, like, punched one of the teenagers, right?
Oh yeah, she punches the
But all
redhead.
this stuff is going down inside, and in the back of my mind I'm like, Rick's just hanging out in the pool,
Yeah, he's just
oblivious
in
to
the
all this.
with his fucking
And then-
headphones on, listening to music.
And then the one who got her like, well, she got her face bashed in with the can.
Yeah.
And then the dog was like mauling her face, right? Because
I
like
think her
she
arm.
was, or her arm.
Yeah.
But she was, you know, she was just holding her face in pain and everything. But she runs out, bashes through the windows, splashes into the pool, and Rick is just like, "What the fuck?" Oh yeah, it was so good. And then at the end, it was also back to payoff, like you were saying, was really good because in the like I want to say 15 minutes in, he's like, "Man, I'm neighbors with Roman Polanski, like the biggest filmmaker out right now." He's like, "I'm fucking neighbors with Polanski. I'm one barbecue away from doing a movie with Polanski."
Yeah.
And then the way that it ends is that he actually talks to, I think it was like Jay Sebring is outside at the gate,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
he
yeah.
talks to Sharon and they invite him in,
Yeah.
and it's that conversation. And then what comes up after is like, you know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And that really drives home the point that this is a fairy tale. This is kind of like the fantasy of what if this golden age of Hollywood
Didn't end.
didn't end,
Yeah.
you know, because the Tates never got murdered. Rick Dalton is no longer a has-been. So and you could even argue that it looks like he's going to have a revival
Yeah.
in his career. Like that's kind of what it implies. So then what if it just kept going? So that's what's really interesting. So it's a love letter to that era, where it's also kind of almost a little bittersweet, because it's like this is what could have happened if you're, you know, into that nostalgia and everything like that. You know, I think at the end of the day, it's good that it ended in real life, because if it didn't, Tarantino probably wouldn't exist. Because the films that came out after were kind of what paved the way for him, like Scorsese.
Yeah, because you had the
and-
gritty, like, kind of darker shit. Yeah, like Scorsese and all that kind of stuff.
And then The
that's
Godfather, so Francis Ford Coppola, like
exactly.
all of that sort of, the classics, you
Yeah.
know? The French Connection is another big one.
And without those movies, like, those movies are clearly what inspired Tarantino.
Yeah.
So.
Or at the very least, you know, gave him a lane
Yeah.
to, you know, do his craft like he wanted.
Yeah. So the other thing I noticed in the film is that there's tons of references in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to all of Tarantino's previous work.
Yeah.
Whether it's like actors cameoing in, because Zoe comes in, Russell Crowe's in there.
Or Kurt Russell.
Or Kurt Russell,
yeah.
sorry, is in there.
Bruce Dern plays the old man.
Bruce
so
Dern
he's been,
plays the old man. They reference, like, there's the Red Apple cigarettes
Red Apple
at
cigarettes.
the end. There's just a bunch, whether it's cameos or objects, items, ideas, whatever, that they appear in this movie that reference previous movies.
No, and the other thing that I loved, obviously, in the credits, there's just a fun little scene with Rick Dalton doing a Red Apple commercial, which is hilarious. You know, he's doing the whole ad read and everything, and then it cuts, and he's like, "Fuck, this is shit.
These taste like shit."
But a small detail that I loved is where he said Red Apple Tobacco, founded in 1862. And what I liked about that was how the Hateful Eight took place in 1862, and that was, to my knowledge, like in terms of chronology, was the first, like the earliest time that Red Apple was name dropped in one of his films. Like the only film earlier than Hateful Eight is Django, and there was no reference to Red Apple Tobacco in that film. So it was just cool where it's like established in 1862. And the earliest time you hear about it, like, you know, from a place and time sort of lens, is Hateful Eight. 1862 is when that movie takes place. So that was just a cool detail that I was like, I see you, Tarantino.
So the other question too then is, because you were explaining to me how there's like a Tarantino verse.
Yeah.
And the movies are separated into two categories. They're either the universe itself, and the characters are real in that universe, or it's movies that those characters would watch in their universe. So where do you think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood falls?
So The one thing is that he kind of hasn't, to my knowledge, he hasn't really talked about that universe thing in a while. So it's a little hard to place like where the recent ones stand, especially because they're period pieces too. They could go either way. Like I would say Django because it is ultra violent and the story is, you know, it's a little more. It's a revenge fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. Of this slave who becomes free and goes to rescue his wife from these slave drivers. I would say that one fits into like the movie universe, right? Same with Kill Bill. This one's interesting.
You kind of go either way.
Like, if you were to tell me, like, if you were to ask me just about the first two acts, I'd be like, oh, definitely in the regular universe.
Yes.
But then because of the whole fantasy aspect where it changes, the course of history.
Well, and it's clearly like a modernized fairy tale. Like it's called Once Upon a Time in
Hollywood. It's a fairy tale to Hollywood, just like Inglourious Bastards is a fairy tale for World War II.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could totally see it going either way.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah,
so it's interesting for sure.
We'll have to see if Tarantino has any input. We'll just
yeah, exactly. I don't know. I think unless you have any final thoughts about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm
good. Go watch it.
Yeah, definitely go watch it. If you're a Tarantino fan, absolutely go watch it. You probably have tickets anyway.
Although you probably shouldn't be watching this if you haven't seen it, because
we went full spoilers. Yeah, definitely go watch it. So I think the only thing to do now is go into our ranking. So we will rank Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but we're going to build up to it first. We're going to discuss all of the other films, probably not as in depth as we did for this movie just because it's so new and we want to talk about it.
Maybe give like brief.
Yeah, but we will talk about all of the movies. We're going to each list our personal ranking. Mm-hmm. And then I think we should have a discussion on, if we
try
have a
to see if we could make a agreed upon ranking. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so Reservoir Dogs, then debut film from Tarantino, released in 1992.
Jesus.
Yeah. So this is
almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So to preface this just really quick is I have seen all of the Tarantino movies multiple times. The one that I've seen the least, other than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I've only seen once because it just came out, is Death Proof, which I've only seen twice. But I have seen all of them at least 4 times each.
I've seen all of them like once.
Yeah. All right, so... Yeah,
I've seen Pulp Fiction a few times because I love that movie, and I've seen Kill Bill, I think twice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and the only reason I bring that up is because it'll be interesting to hear a discussion from you having a lot of these movies be your first time watching them, and then for me where like I was watching these movies and I was like quoting them the whole way through the whole time. So I guess to start with Reservoir Dogs, obviously it's a classic, so it's kind of hard to talk about because it's like everything that's going to be said has already been said, but let's talk about it anyway, because that's what this is about. So I really liked this movie. I really liked how it was confined into more or less one area with the warehouse and how all of the action is really centered around there. I love how it starts with a conversation in the diner with everyone because it kind of, they're talking about Like a Virgin and Madonna liking big dicks and everything like that. So it's not really relevant to character moment except when we get to Mr. Pink and Mr. Orange. But that's not really relevant. But what is relevant is it paints them as real people. They just shoot the shit. They're talking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What does work as character moments, though, is Mr. Pink, where he's like, I don't believe in it. So it shows that he's pretty cheap and he's very, he's not.
I think we all know Mr. Pink in real life.
The other big one, though, is Mr. Orange, because after Mr. Pink does his whole thing where he doesn't want to throw in tip money, what's his name? So anyway, when Joe comes over the table and he's looking through the money, he realizes that not everyone threw in. So he says, "Who didn't throw in?" And immediately, Mr. Orange, undercover cop, says, "Mr. Pink." So he actually rats on him.
Right.
And it's one of those things that you don't even notice until later, repeat viewings. He goes,
Holy shit.
So he goes, "Mr. Pink," and then he's like, "Mr. Pink, why didn't he?" And he goes, "Because he didn't believe in it." So not only does he rat on him once, but he rats on him twice. So he rats on him to say that it was him, and then he says why. So that's kind of an interesting thing.
Because then immediately after, doesn't Mr. Pink go on his big tirade about why he doesn't believe in tipping?
Yeah. Well, he does
and then
before,
isn't
and
Mr.
then continues
Orange the
to.
one that says, "All right, you've changed my mind. Give me my money back"?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's
I
interesting.
wonder if that's just supposed to be part of like the ruse,
Yeah. So.
Interesting. The cop is the one that rats him out.
Yeah. So then they leave the diner and it goes into the intro credits scene with the music, which, let's go into the music because it's a very interesting music choice. I like it. I think it adds to the charm because it's like K. Billy's super sounds of the 70s. So it's all these 70s songs in this 90s movie that takes place in the present day, but it goes at it from a world perspective as there's this guest DJ on this channel and he's playing all of these 70s hits as this heist and all of the events following it are going down, which I think is cool. Still though, it's interesting to hear the music, kind of contradicted with all the action going down.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what you thought, just on a first viewing, hearing the music while watching the film.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, I did not like it, I just noticed it.
I noticed it was there, but I didn't think anything of it.
For sure. Yeah, and then
I think the first thing that stood out to me is after they're all walking away, they're walking towards their cars, and the credits start rolling.
Yeah.
Already, and I hate that.
You don't like.
I hate
credits.
pre-movie credits. Yeah. I hate that. I hate that shit. But I mean, whatever. Like the movie came out in the '90s. It's a big thing in the '90s. I mean, movies still do that today. So.
Yeah. Today there's a little more style put into them. Like it's usually over pre-existing shots. Like
it's not as
scrolled
in your
text.
face.
Yeah. Well, unlike the intro credits for Reservoir Dogs was just the names, and then the text actually scrolled up too to get the co-starring and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. I don't know. It's one of those things I can definitely hear.
I think the only
doesn't
way
bother me.
The only way it would have been worse is if it did like a full-on freeze frame.
Oh yeah.
Like they're walking and star so and so, and he's just like frozen there, right? Like that.
The whole time. It did do a freeze frame for a short time, but then it cuts to black.
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah.
When it brings up the Reservoir Dogs title.
Yeah,
it does
because it's freeze frame for Reservoir Dogs.
Different. But it doesn't, for each individual actor.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Because it goes to, the camera goes to
old
each
school
actor.
sitcom sort of deal.
The camera goes to each actor and brings up their name in a title card. And yeah, if it had done like a full shitty freeze frame shit, that would have killed. I don't know if I would have kept watching. I'd have been like, this is fucking dumb.
He does do that at the end of Kill Bill, but it's different in that movie.
It's also at the
end. It's all built at the style. Yeah, and it's built around the style. But anyway, back to Reservoir Dogs is... Yeah, I think the last thing to talk about, just because it is your first time watching it, is what did you think of the Mr. Blonde torture scene on the police officer's set 2, Stuck in the Middle with You? What did you think of that? Because that is an iconic scene.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's really good.
I thought it was just like the song choice. I thought the way it played out.
Yeah, he's dancing along.
Yeah, he's like dancing along, like clearly, like he's clearly a man who's not like, he's not insane, like he's not like unhinged, like he's not a Joker.
Because he is very reserved. Very reserved.
Yeah, like he's not like a Joker type villain.
Yeah.
But he's clearly like
Unhinged. He's
unhinged to the point, like he's clearly like a sociopath or some sort, where it's like, and he clearly takes pride in his work.
Yeah.
And enjoys his work, and it comes across in this scene that this is a guy who enjoys his job.
Mm-hmm.
His job's not necessarily a good one.
Yeah.
But he enjoys it, and he's good at it, and I don't know, it's just like super interesting watching a half torture scene, I guess. Potentially could have been more.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he goes to light him on fire and everything.
Mm-hmm. The other thing with this film too, that I think a lot of it can actually be attributed to that it was his first film, so it's a little lower budget, is it's very tightly paced. It knows, even though it's non-linear, because they go back and do flashbacks in Joe's office with a lot of the characters, it's
they
still
have a
very
flashback
tight.
and a flashback.
Yeah, they do
that
with
movie.
Mr. Orange, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's the flashback after he reveals that he's a cop.
Yeah, he flashes back and he's in the booth with his, I don't know, his partner, his superior or what.
Yeah.
And then it flashes back and his superior tells him you're going undercover, so you need to learn your script, and he gives him a script because it's the first time he's meeting Joe. So he gives him a script, and then it flashes back again. No, wait.
Yeah, so what happens is it cuts to the booth when he's like, "Oh, did you meet with Joe and everything?" And he talks about the meeting.
Yeah, and then it
and
flashes
then he's
back
like,
and
"Did
talks
you use
about the meeting."
Because it's like, "Did you use the commode story?" And then it cuts, and it's a different scene. And he's like, "So what's a commode story?" He's like, "So it's a story, like an anecdote," and then it goes into that whole thing. And then what's
you're right.
cool
I knew it was in there.
And then that leads up to the meeting, which actually takes place.
And then we get to see the meeting.
Yeah, and then we see the meeting. So that's a very interesting structure because it is a long, like it's what, 20 minutes? 15, 20 minutes? I've like the whole Mr. Orange flashback. It's quite long.
It's pretty long. Yeah, I'd say probably 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, so like that, the way that whole section is structured is very unique. Very Tarantino, but it's because it's like that weird structure placed right into this movie that's already quite non-linear because they have the diner scene, which is the beginning, then it cuts to after, skips, it's because that diner scene is before the heist, skips the heist, then it goes into all of that, then they flash back to their meetings with Joe, which take place, who the hell knows when, it's just before.
Yeah.
And then there's the part with Mr. Orange where it's before and then cuts to more before and leading up.
Well, and then you even get like, and this is actually something that I thought was crazy well done, is it's a heist movie where I don't actually get to see the heist.
Yeah, and you don't need to.
And I get to see the heist through flashbacks, but only in little bits and only from certain characters' perspectives. Yeah. And I still don't get to see the whole thing.
Yeah. The closest
you don't need
get to seeing the heist is immediately after when Mr. Pink is running away carrying the briefcase full of diamonds.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is the closest you get, which we can just assume is like seconds after. But yeah, it's really cool. It's interesting. But definitely, though, a great movie. If you're watching this, you've probably seen it. But if you haven't, for whatever reason, go watch it. I think, so then I guess that's really all. So let's move on to the next one.
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp fucking Fiction.
Probably one of the greatest films.
Yeah, another classic. Reservoir Dogs is a classic, but this just goes into that new realm of classics, almost like timeless classics. Like I would consider Reservoir Dogs a classic for its time, whereas Pulp Fiction is a classic for all of film.
Yeah.
It's up there. Not saying that it's, as
equal
good, but
or better than. But
I would say that Pulp Fiction, maybe this is controversial, but that's up there. You would put Pulp Fiction in the same breath as Taxi Driver or even Citizen Kane or Casablanca. Like these are films not that are just, classics, just banner film classics to me. you know, they're not classics in their time. They're classics for all of film.
Yeah, I think I'd put Pulp Fiction in there. Yeah.
And there's more than that too, of course.
Yeah, like Godfather.
Yeah, Godfather. Yeah.
Fight Club.
Yeah, yeah. For
I
more
don't know,
modern,
I put Fight Club in
for
there.
a more modern classic, definitely. But yeah, Pulp
If we're
Fiction.
going like old school, then you got like
Casablanca, yeah, for sure.
Singing in the Rain.
Yeah. Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz.
But anyway, yeah, we can go on and on.
I'd probably put Pulp Fiction in there. In that list of just, it's a classic. If you just enjoy film, you should see Pulp Fiction if you haven't seen it.
The biggest thing I can say about Pulp Fiction, again, kind of falls into the same realm as Reservoir Dogs, that a lot of things that have been said, you know, they've already been said, so what can we really add? But what I really like about this film is that from the very beginning to the very end, it's 100 miles an hour the whole way.
Dude, it does not stop.
Yeah, it is very kinetic energy, very, very fast paced. Even in their slower conversations, it has an energy to it.
And I think an energy to it's the best way to describe it, because it's not like watching it's not like it's just all action, go go go
Yeah,
go go.
exactly.
It's not like it's all suspense or thriller or whatever, go 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 go. It's like it's just got like an energy to it that it doesn't make you feel like suspenseful the whole way through. It doesn't make you feel like an adrenaline junkie the whole way through. Like you definitely like within an action scene, you know, you don't get that adrenaline rush. But you're definitely like, you watch that movie
immersed,
and
you are entertained the whole way through.
You are in it, and it goes. It does not. There's no breaks in that movie. There's no like scene where it just like stops and takes a breather. It's like no, we're gonna get on to the next thing, and the next thing, and then the next thing, which maybe sounds anxiety-inducing, but it's not. It's a great time.
It's so fun.
Because it's so fun, it's so engrossing, and it flows so well. And what can we say? Fucking Sam Jackson in that movie.
And John Travolta. Like they play off each other so well, and I know it's been said multiple times.
The Damocles line. That whole quote, dude. That quote's a classic too. Like that whole scene is just great.
Well, there's so many quotables that people who have never even seen the movie know those lines. They don't know what it's from, but they know it because it's like, do you know what they call a royale, or do you know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in France? Royale with cheese. And then like the Damocles line too is another big one.
That one's really long though. We're not gonna.
It is, but And then you shot Marvin. Marvin in the face.
I didn't shoot Marvin.
You must have went over a bump or something. Man, I didn't go over no motherfucking bump.
That's like the one moment in that movie that I feel like if there was gonna be a break, it's the car ride. You just got out of them fucking blasting the shit out of this apartment of guys. You're in the car ride. It's finally like, you know, it's breather time. They're just gonna have some dialogue, maybe talk, and then pull into the driveway, and we'll get back into it, right? Or we'll pull into a parking lot, and they'll take them to meet, and we'll get back in. But no, because next thing you know, like he's fucking dead. Gun goes off, he's dead. It's just one thing after another in that movie. The other thing too, the other scene too, where you might get like some downtime, and it's kind of a will they won't they moment, is with Vincent and Mia, and she snorts the heroin, and then starts to like fucking die. She literally starts dying.
There's another quotable though too, when he's up in the bathroom. He's like, "All right, you're gonna go home, you're gonna jerk off, and that's all you're gonna do."
Yeah.
And then he goes down. And then it's a close up of Mia, and she's just foaming from the mouth.
Yeah.
He's like, "All right, Mia, sorry, I gotta go home." And oh fuck me, fuck me, fuck. Lance, also a great character. So good.
Well, and that's the same scene too. When for people who have seen the meme of John Travolta with his jacket, he's just like.
Yeah.
That's from that scene where he gets into Mia's house and he's trying to find. Is it the bathroom?
No, the intercom.
The intercom. Yeah.
Yeah, because and then just the whole chaos that transpires from him going to Lance's place with the adrenaline shot and everything like that. Yeah. Oh man. And the dialogue is so good the whole time. Like, I'm just laughing my ass off. It's so good. It's so entertaining.
Oh my god. And then the scene about the watch. And,
oh yeah.
And he's explaining about Christopher
Walken.
Walken's explaining how he has stuck the watch up his asshole. And his dad carried the watch up his asshole, and he's telling this to like a fucking 6-year-old or some shit.
Yeah, it's so good. And then the other thing,
such a different role too for
Bruce Willis.
Bruce
is that
Willis,
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and this was
because it's not the high action.
Yeah,
super
with Die Hard and everything.
Shit. Yeah, like Die Hard and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Very different.
Speaking of that too, that's another. Like, that is the one, like, that does it. It's still really good and it complements the whole movie. I do think it's I don't want to say it's the weakest, but it's just that the other ones are so fun and watchable that this one does stand out in that it's a little more, it builds more, right? Like, it starts with him in that cab ride, and then he goes home, or doesn't go home actually, he goes to the motel, and they're hanging out and talking, but there's a character moment because it's building everything. But I would say the most shocking moment of the film is the fucking rape scene.
Oh my god.
With
the gimp and everything?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Dude.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of Pulp, is because that's what it's all about, is that it's just, you can go 1 minute from being this boxing movie, and then all of a sudden you're in Deliverance where there's men raping other men.
Yeah.
But that's all about what Pulp is that it's just a collection of a bunch of stuff. It's all, it's grimy and gritty, rough around the edges, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then, think about it. You go from, thugs to, a date scene.
A date night.
And then there's the
boxing
kind of there's the fucking, it starts off with, in the restaurant, the diner.
Yeah.
I pointed at the poster because they're on the poster. And then it comes back to the diner to kind of end it all.
Yeah, no, I fucking love this movie. Obviously, I'm not gonna say how much because that's for the end. But yeah, I love this movie. I don't know. I could
great
talk.
Cast, great characters, great writing, great movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk for days just about this movie, but we got to move on. So
probably spent more time on that than we should.
I'm interested in this next one. Is Jackie Brown. And I'm interested because this is your first time watching this movie, right?
Yeah.
So this one it's very often overlooked. That's all I'm gonna say is for most Tarantino films. This one and Death Proof is the most overlooked. But Death Proof, I would just say, just because of the nature of how it was released, in the Grindhouse double feature. This one was released and billed as a Tarantino film. It was standalone, all of that sort of stuff. But it's definitely the most overlooked. And definitely the most different from all of his other movies. But I want to hear your thoughts because it's first time watching it. So
I'm gonna be honest. Thought the beginning part was super boring.
Yeah. What do you consider the beginning?
Okay, so from the beginning.
Yeah. So from Pam Grier walking
through the airport,
which I love. I love that. I love
shot
it set to
cool.
The song, and it's
the
song, and it's tracking.
Well, and then it tracks her on one of those floor escalator things, and then she starts running.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that they just had the wall was moving. That's how I thought they were doing that. That they were cheating it, and that the background was moving. But then we get to the background where there's people she runs past people, and then I think she runs through some windows, and you see the airport outside, and then she turns, and she's at her gate, and I was like, oh, that was all real. They didn't cheat any of that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I really love just about that opening shot is it starts out, because Pam Pam Grier was like the queen of those blaxploitation films where it was all about that whole sort of thing, you know, really, really embracing like black culture and soul and everything. Like they actually called it blaxploitation because it was just all about that culture and everything. So this movie was kind of paying respect and homage to that because it starts as almost a glamour shot. Well, not almost. I would consider it a glamour shot to Pam Grier. And then it evolves because then she's like, oh shit, I better hurry up. And then she starts running. And then to me, it was kind of a way to show like, yeah, she's glamorous, but she's also has shit that she has to do.
Yeah. Right?
And it actually gives the character and the movie a little more urgency.
I lied. I don't think it was boring from the very start. Because then you're right. That shot was cool. Because that shot actually I remember because it had my attention.
Mm-hmm. And then fit to the song
I thought they cheated it, to be honest. And then I think she gets caught by the ATF guy. And
yeah, because it cuts to after when she lands. Yeah, when she lands.
Yeah. And she gets caught with like 50 grand or something by the ATF guy. And then
she gets arrested because they
arrested.
find coke in her purse too.
And then I think we cut to Sam Jackson
and Melanie and
Melanie
Robert De Niro, whatever his name. I can't remember. He doesn't talk. Lewis,
yeah. And we cut to them, we get to meet them. I thought they were all interesting, and then we see Sam go and he kills the guy for the same reason that Jackie got arrested for.
Yeah,
so then we see him go take the debt bond out on Jackie, and we assume that he's going to kill Jackie. Mm-hmm. And I think that's around the time I stopped paying attention.
Okay, I do want to backpedal just a little bit. Is that scene, so it's kind of comedic at first when, you know, he's talking with, believe it or not, Chris Tucker is the guy, right, from Rush Hour and stuff, you know, and more things.
Yeah.
Rush Hour is like the big one. So they're talking and he's like, oh, you got to get in the trunk because, you know, we want to pull up on these guys and we want the element of surprise. And then when he gets him in the trunk and then he sits in the car and he takes out a glove and you see the pistol, you're like, oh shit, what's going down? And then they play like one of my favorite songs in a Tarantino movie. It's actually so good. I looked it up on Spotify because I was like, man, I dig this song. It's Strawberry Letter 23 by the Brothers Johnson. Yeah. And that song comes up and just the first couple notes are so good and he's just sitting in the car and he's driving. And then that shot too. I love the shot where it cuts to a wide.
It comes
like it's a wide, lower angle. Yeah. And the car drives away. And all it does,
and you see him go around the fence.
And it just goes around the block. And it's all played out in a wide where he exits the truck or exits the car. Closes it. Yeah, that was really cool. I really like that scene. I also really like. Yeah, the music in this film is a standout to me. I love the music choices that they used. Like the music cue when Robert Forster's character, Max Cherry, first sees Jackie and he's pretty smitten, and then that music plays and she's walking. And it's another cool, like it's another kind of subversion of a glamour shot because it's giving her a glamour shot, kind of showing her natural beauty because, you know, she's been in jail and she's not at the best time at the moment, but he's still into her, so it's kind of cool how they do it that way. And then, you know, they talk and they get to know each other. And then, going to this scene that you last mentioned when you think Sam Jackson's going there to kill Jackie and she pulls out the gun.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I remember that.
Really cool.
And she pulls out the gun, makes the deal with him, and that's when they plan the heist.
Yeah.
And I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some middle bits where some stuff happens and they like plan the heist, and Jackie she is on this. She tricks
She's
the
playing
ATF.
Everybody.
Yeah, she starts playing the ATF. She's clearly playing Sam.
The only person she's not. You wonder if maybe she's playing Max. But that's what makes their relationship so good, is because when it reveals that no, they're in it together. These are the only people that actually have kind of a trustworthy relationship, which is really cool. That's why I really like their relationship and how everything was played out.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think we
make a
could
point of not pulling out my phone in movies. I pulled out my phone for this part. These
Interesting.
parts though, in
Yeah.
the middle, and I was just listening and not really
Yeah,
paying
it's
attention.
interesting.
And it wasn't until we got to the heist,
which is done really
which is
interesting.
done crazy, like really well,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
They show each character's perspective and then bounce back
To the same
to
starting
the same
point.
kind of starting point and play it again.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
And yeah, I watched that. I thought the heist was great. I loved how they did it.
Yeah, I think it was really well done too. And then probably the most surprising moment in that movie is when Lewis guns down
Oh
Melanie
man,
parking
just in the
lot.
parking lot.
He just has enough. Like she's just nagging him the whole time, and he just has enough, and he just turns around, boom, boom, and just continues on. That was crazy. So yeah, the heist and everything like that is kind of where it hits a high point in terms of excitement.
Yeah.
And then what transpires after is that Jackie's working with the ATF to try and get Ordell, but she's also setting up Ordell to get his money to him because she's playing dumb that, you know, Melanie ran out with the money and everything like that. And she's playing everybody. This is where, you know, just to get to the short and sweet of it, they all meet up at Max Cherry's place. Ordell is shot down because he has a gun because he's going there to kill Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gunned down
and
by
he's
the
already
ATF.
killed De Niro at this point.
Yes, yeah, he killed De Niro. So they know that he's done it all. They just have to catch him in the act doing something. So yeah, and then it ends there, and then the end, like the true end, is Jackie's got all of the money. She played everybody.
Yeah.
Max took a little bit of money, but not a lot. And they have a conversation about, you know, do we want to essentially run away together, you know, leave these lives behind and start fresh. And they kind of come to the conclusion that they're too old to do that. They're already comfortable in their own lives, and
well,
it just
she's going
wouldn't
to do
really.
that.
She's going to do that, but he's not.
Yeah, he's not.
He's gonna stay, and they realize that it's just not meant to be, and then it ends with that bittersweet moment of Jackie. You know, she's won. She's got all of the money, but she has to leave. You know, kind of this love that she's built behind. So it plays the same song as in the beginning, bookends it. So I really like the ending. I think it's really well done, and it's nice. I've heard before that this is the most mature Tarantino film, and I'm inclined to agree with that, because the other last point I want to make on this movie is that when you think about it, everything's kind of low stakes. Like $500,000 is a lot of money, but it's not really a lot of money, especially when you compare it to other heist movies. Like, it's pretty modest.
Yeah.
And I think that does a lot to show that all of these characters are kind of, you know, they're past their prime. Like Ordell is he's a little bit of a poser. Like, he's in the business, but he talks big game and really can't back it up a whole lot. Melanie says a lot about that, where he's like, he just talks a bunch of shit, and he's really a nobody. And then Jackie, she's in her 40s. Max Cherry's in his late 50s.
Yeah.
So Lewis has been in jail for years, and he's out, and he's kind of clueless about life. You know, everyone's, you know, they're not really at the top of their game, so it kind of really fits. And what also fits then is the pacing of the movie. It's a lot slower because it kind of fits in with all these characters. That whole methodical pacing, more reserved pacing, all fits into that.
Yeah.
But that's all. I don't know. I like this movie. I think it's an interesting watch. We'll get into my ranking, but yeah.
So the next movie.
Yeah, the next movie is when we go back to traditional Tarantino, Kill Bill. Yeah. And just for the record, for this, Tarantino counts Kill Bill as one film. So we're going to be talking just about volumes 1 and 2, you know, in the same breath. We're not really going to separate them.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of time and, you know, everything like that.
Yeah.
Just going to get a drink of water before we start.
Me too.
So this movie is insane. Kill Bill.
It's
is
so
insane.
good.
Yeah, it's really good.
It is just so fucking good, man.
Yeah, it is really good.
God.
Part 1
Dude,
is
okay,
so stylistic
Oh,
and so
man.
like I love
So
the blending of
stylistic.
styles in Part 1 and in Part 2, but Part 1 is a lot more overt with it. But yeah, it's man,
I like
it's
the
so
way
good.
you put it before.
Yeah,
The Part 1 was...
style over substance,
Yeah.
and Part 2 is substance over style.
Yeah.
Not, I think that kind of undersells both of them, but if you wanted to paint a very wide brush,
Yeah.
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to talk about. Like, fuck, man. There's so much good shit to talk about in that movie. Like, you get the classic, like, I think, iconic. Not classic. We'll go iconic scene where she's in the back of the car and she can't move at this point. She's just
willing
escaped
herself.
the hospital,
Mhm.
where they were like raping her and shit. And yeah, so she I think she kills one of the orderlies, takes his keys, and then she's in
The pussy wagon.
Yeah, she's in the pussy wagon.
Jesus Christ.
She's in the back of the pussy wagon. She's got, and it's the iconic wiggle your big toe scene, and then she, until she gets it, and like the willpower in that moment. Imagine waking up from a coma in the middle of about to be raped.
Yeah.
You can't move.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine the willpower.
She just bites his lip. It's his lip. She just bites his bottom lip off, which is epic.
And then
so good.
And then escapes. And then basically wills her body to move again.
Mm-hmm.
It's, fuck, man. It's badass. It's fucking
badass.
It is,
And then the other badass scene is in Volume 2 when she escapes from being buried alive.
Yeah,
I love that scene. And then,
with the punch, the
with
1-inch
the 1-inch punch. Yeah,
dude,
it
that
goes
scene's
back, does a
iconic
whole
too.
flashback.
Yeah,
too
where
with,
she's learning the 1-inch punch, right?
Yeah,
dude, that scene is like, I think that whole shit's iconic too.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember watching that as I guess a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know when did the movie come out?
2000. I want to say it was like 2003 and 4.
So yeah, I would have been a kid. I remember watching that movie as a kid. Probably shouldn't have been watching it. But I remember watching that movie as a kid, and I was big into martial arts. And just like watching the training scenes of the 1-inch punch was like, I don't know, it was big for me. I was like, fuck, man, that's sick.
The other cool thing, it's just a small detail, but Pai Mei is actually like a pretty, like that character, the character of Pai Mei is pretty renowned in kung fu movies, but he always plays like the bad guy.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see these characters. Who do they go and get trained? Like who do these characters go and get trained by for these mystical arts?
Yeah.
Pai Mei. To them he's a hero, but when you look at it through the lens of all those classic martial arts films and kung fu movies, Pai Mei is always the bad guy,
Yeah, that's true.
So that's just a fun detail that I like.
Holy shit! Okay, and then back to Volume 1 in the club, and they get the crane shot over
so
the
good.
walls.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so sick. Who comes up with that shit?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we gotta come up with something like that, because that's just, dude, like, I remember, I just get mind blown. Every time I watch that, I'm just like, fuck, this shot is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to see into each little room and the shit that's going on. And the action doesn't break for anything.
And it goes to
There's a
from
fight scene
color.
going on, by the way, in this moment.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, but you probably have.
You should have.
So it goes from, it starts in color, and then it switches to black and white, which is interesting, and then immediately after it switches into the blue silhouetted shot. So, like, you have just this artistic style up to this other artistic style.
Fucking weird.
And it works.
It's so good.
Works so good. Yeah. Like, Kill Bill is probably the first movie where Tarantino was like, fuck it, I'm taking everything I love from other movies and just putting it in a pot.
Kill Bill definitely felt like a love, like
A
a
love letter
passion
to-
project.
And to so many things, like,
Yeah.
obviously martial arts films and kung fu movies, but there's love letters to westerns because go back to the
like we said before, he loves
buried
Westerns.
alive scene when she's actually digging herself out of the grave. That song that plays is a song I don't remember the name of the song, but it's from a song it's the song from the movie called The Gunfighter, which is an old 60s western, which is
kind of
really great, and it's composed by Ennio Morricone, like the top dog for western composers.
Yeah.
But it fits so good because I know, like, a way that a lot of people like to look at it is that part one is like mostly Japanese, kung fu influence, and part two is more western influence, but there's a lot of bleed over into both.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could see how people would say that, but like the ending of Volume 2, for example, like you get the whole like the cheese strike shit. I forget what it's called. Like, that's clearly not what. That's very much an Eastern.
But it takes place in a Mexican setting, which you could say is Western.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
But so it's cool how it mixes both of them together very flawlessly.
But then isn't Bill dressed in like that kind of like Eastern, like
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
like Shaolin getup?
Yeah.
I guess robes would be the word.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was wearing something like that.
Mm-hmm. So I watched both volumes back to back.
Yeah.
This watch through, I think the one thing to me that hurts Kill Bill, just from seeing it in the eyes as of one movie, is I do think that it's a little long, right? Like, I think what would have been better, and this goes way back, because originally the idea was it was supposed to be one movie, and it wasn't until they were editing it where they're like, this is a long movie, like, why don't we split this, 2 hours for the first part and 2 hours and 20 minutes for the second part. So I think when you watch them separately and you have time to digest them both, it's perfect. But when you're watching it with the lens of one film, I think it would have been a lot better if they just cut out half an hour and released it as one long. It would have been a long ass movie.
Yeah.
Still would have been 3.5 hours. But I think it would have benefited the movie a little bit more, because that's my thing. I love Kill Bill, but watching it this time especially, I was like, I feel, dude, there's some pacing issues, which can all be attributed to the fact that it's 2 parts and it's long.
I think, yeah.
That's the only thing,
fair.
and especially part 2. And I think that's where a lot of people say part 2's not very good. Not a lot, but some people actually say part 2's not very good because it's slower. I like that it is slower, but I like it. But when you compare it to part 1, which is, 100 miles an hour, all like start to finish.
Part 1 has the crazy 88 fight.
Like, how can you top that in terms of excitement and action?
And right before she fights the crazy 88, she fights the little girl, I forget her name.
Oh yeah, shows on the back there. Go-Go.
Yeah, she fights Go-Go. And that fight scene's so good too. Like, it's one fight scene into another fight scene that are both like really good.
Holy shit.
Maybe not necessarily like realistic, but Kill Bill is not striving. What was I saying?
Just talking about Go-Go, how like she fights Go-Go.
Oh yeah, so right before she fights the crazy 88, she fights Go-Go, and that's another like really good fight scene. And I think that's the other thing too that people really liked about Kill Bill Volume 1.
Yeah.
Is that like it went from like when she fights Go-Go, and then it immediately, like, there's like a small short break where she gets to catch her breath, and then she fights the crazy 88. And in both fights too, they're not very realistic fights. They are very like over the top, like kind of kung fu-y, as we said before, fight scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's people really like that. That's what people really like about Volume 1 is that over the top action.
Mm-hmm.
That Volume 2 has, but not as much of it.
Yeah. No, and I still love Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, but I just think for me, in a perfect world, if I was to rewind time, I would walk right into their editing suite and I'd be like, nah, make it one movie. You could cut out 20 minutes and make it just a fucking amazing one movie. But I still...
So you'd have them cut out like 20 minutes and make one 4-hour movie.
Yeah. Which is kind of what their original intention was until they realized it was too long. You'd have to have an intermission. I'd be down.
Like, we're talking like I think the last movie I saw with an intermission was Seven Samurai, and that's like a 3.5 hour, maybe 4 hour movie.
Yeah.
I'm not 100%. But that movie is an intermission.
Yeah.
Movies used to be long.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah. You know what? I kind of agree with you, because if you do that, that's also part of like a stylistic choice, right? As maybe, especially being that Kill Bill has a lot of Eastern influence.
Yeah.
It can be an homage to some of those Eastern, like feudal samurai type movies that had those crazy long run times with intermissions.
Yeah.
So maybe it actually would have worked out better for it to be one long movie with an intermission rather than 2 movies. But I mean, studios got to make money, so.
Yeah. Well, and a complete cut does exist. Tarantino has made one complete cut just for himself. I think it's in his home theater, and it's there, and it's just a Kill Bill complete cut or whatever, and it's just one runtime. It's not split. So
I'd like to see that someday.
It'd be interesting. And there were changes, because it's not like you can put both of them together.
You can't just take them as they are and mash them together.
They each have...
Because they have an end and a beginning.
What's interesting is the beginning has I think the beginning has 2 intros. One for the whole Kill Bill movie and one for Kill Bill Volume 1 kind of deal.
Yeah.
And the part 2 has 2 outros. One for the movie as a whole and one for just Volume 2. And the Volume 2 one is probably the one that's more obvious, because the one for all of Kill Bill is the one where it does the freeze frames and credits everyone. And the one just for Volume 2 is when it goes to black and white and she's driving in the car.
Right.
And it does all of that stuff, and it's just credits for Volume 2. So it's interesting. It's a weird choice having 2 end credits, because everyone's, like, all of the main players are credited twice.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. That's the best way to look at it, is you have to look at it from the lens of Kill Bill as one story, and Kill Bill as 2 volumes, 2 parts, you know? Still love it.
We should move on, though, because I'm already thinking, like, there's the trailer fight scene was fucking sick. The fight scene, I guess fight scene, it's kind of, there's fighting in it. When she's in, is it, which one's house?
Oh, yeah,
the
Copperhead.
Daughter,
Copperhead is her code name, but I don't remember.
I was going to say Black Mamba, but that wasn't her.
Yeah, Black Mamba's her, yeah. Black Mamba is Beatrix.
Yeah. And that's why I knew it wasn't it. But yeah, and then, like, that scene's super cool, because they're trying to, like, hide from the daughter that they were trying to kill each other, like, 10 seconds ago.
Yeah. And it's a good character moment too, because it shows that she is more honorable than her opponent, because they talk about having this honorable fight at night in like a baseball diamond or something.
Yeah.
And then she tries to pull a fast one on the bride and tries to shoot her through the cereal box.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so she kind of breaks that honor code that they were just setting up. And then it's not until that happens that the bride retaliates and kills her. But that's a cool character moment, because it shows that, yeah, the bride is this, you know, merciless killer, but she's
kind
not
of the wandering
without honor.
Ronin archetype.
Yeah, definitely, very much so.
All right, moving on, because otherwise we'll be talking about these movies forever.
Yeah. Kill Bill is just so long, there's so much to talk about. But yeah, moving on to another interesting one, Death Proof. Another one that's kind of overlooked, for me, I feel it's just because of the nature that it was released, being in the Grindhouse double feature that they did with Robert Rodriguez film being Planet Terror in that one. But we're just talking, that maybe that's a whole other video. But this one, Death Proof, just talking about it in relation to the rest of his films. This was your first time watching Death Proof, right? Yeah, this was my second time. And I actually like this movie a lot more than I did on first viewing. So I'm interested to hear what your first impressions were.
So, I like the first half of Death Proof.
Yeah, me too. I actually really like the first half of Death Proof.
So
I love the intro.
So real quick, Death Proof is kind of separated into two halves.
Yeah, definitely.
Where we see
Kurt Russell as Stuntman Mike.
Yeah, Stuntman Mike. He's a serial killer. He's trying to kill a group of girls, and then the second half is another attempt at killing some people again. So it's basically two short stories about Kurt Russell's Stuntman Mike's attempted and somewhat successful murders of people.
Yeah. The first
I guess
part,
not somewhat.
yeah,
it was successful.
Well, because
so the first part is really good. The first part has
and he succeeds in
the first part. He succeeds
in killing the girls.
Girls, yeah. And so the first part starts off as like super classic grindhouse.
Yeah.
You get the hot single chicks that are young and
they're
very
at the
good
bar.
looking.
All they want to do is talk. All
they talk about is boys and how they want to fuck boys.
It's grindhouse exploitation to a T.
Yes. And then you get the creepy car staring at them on the other side of the road, and it was super cool stylistically because it had the like
damaged
screen
film
effect.
effects.
Yeah, the damaged film effects, and then stuttering, like lines would get repeated, or an actor would like turn, and then it would like cut back, and they'd turn again and repeat their line.
Because it goes back to what Grindhouse was actually about, where these were all B movies, and these projector reels or film reels would just be tossed around, and they would get damaged. So then when you'd actually watch the movie, the reel would be damaged, so that's why it kind of looked like shit, and it would skip, and it was so cool how they added that into the film,
which adds to the grindhouse part of
the
Grindhouse
authenticity,
Death Proof, and B, stylistically was really cool.
I enjoyed it a lot too.
And then, of course, it comes down. Stuntman Mike follows them into a bar. They're celebrating, I think, a birthday. They're gonna get drunk at this bar, and then they plan to go to the lake cabin. The lake cabin for the weekend, where there's no boys.
Yeah, that's the whole big thing, is no boys, all that shit. So they want to kind of,
and it kind of makes
which leads into the lap dance. Too.
Yeah, that's true. And then there's like
which
the lap dance.
A typical grindhouse scene too, where it's just, gazing on this, chick giving this guy a lap dance. Very, very sexual, really. Sexually shot.
And then there's like the scene where he interacts with the blonde chick, whose name I forget.
Yeah, me too.
And she
they're all kind of forgettable, but that's the point.
She makes
in Grindhouse.
fun of him for being at a bar not drinking, blah blah blah. There's some back and forth. It's really interesting dialogue for the most part. And then we get to the car, and because he offers to give the blonde girl a ride home. Yeah. And we get into the car, and we get like probably the best line in that whole movie, where they pull up to an intersection, and he asks, "Are you going left or are you going right?" And she says, "I'm going right." And he says, "Well, that's too bad, because if you were going left, then you might not have caught on right away, and you'd have some time to not be afraid."
It would have been a while before you started getting scared. But since you're going right, you're gonna have to start getting scared immediately. And then he
laughs and takes off to the left.
That's my favorite line in the whole movie. Yeah, favorite part of the whole movie, because it's that moment where Stuntman Mike finally shows his true colors, and it's also it's leading up to the payoff.
Especially because, and it's important because during all that, we skipped over the dialogue bits because it's relatively
It's really not
unimportant.
It's very grindhouse.
The only important part about the dialogue bits is that stuntman Mike is very charming.
Yes.
Very charming.
Yeah. And he's preying on
and
girls
quick-witted.
that are kind of...
He's charming and he's quick-witted.
Yeah.
Those are the big things.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so he's driving fast on this road, and he's swerving all over, and she's getting all bruised and battered, and then finally, she's begging for him to let him out. It's all a joke, haha, and he just slams on his brakes, and she bashes her mouth into the dash, and it's just so bloody, and then she drops dead right in the car.
Which is important too, because he's got a stunt car. He actually was a stuntman.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's not really ever confirmed. But he's got the skills to back it up, and he's got the car to back it up. He has a stunt car. It's got a cage. It's got reinforced
driver's seat.
Driver's seat. It's got the double race car seatbelt. The outside, the exterior of the car is all reinforced. All of it's reinforced. But then the passenger, there's no passenger seat. It's a stool. There's no seatbelt. Mm-hmm. It's literally for when she asks him about it, and he was like, "Well, sometimes they might want to film inside the car, so we have
you got to put a camera.
in. So it's very easy for him to knock her around and kill her by slamming on the brakes and stuff. And then he drives past the girls that he's targeting the whole time.
Yeah, that are driving out to the lake house.
Yeah, they're driving out to their lake house at this point. He drives past them, turns around, kills his lights, and then drives towards them. Because his car's death-proof. They make a mention of it earlier.
Because it's a stunt car, basically, is what they get.
And then the head-on collision, and the way they do the head-on collision was so cool, because it's similar to Jackie Brown's heist scene, where they reset it from the beginning each time. It's when he kills the lights. It's the same
But
shot.
it's way more fast-paced and very grindhouse.
It's faster-paced the second, or the times when it loops it. But so he kills the lights, drives forward, he hits the car.
Turns the lights on at the last second.
That's right. So that's what it is. It's not him killing lights, it's him
Well, he does kill the lights and then turns them on.
No, yeah, but when it starts the loop, it's him turning them on. Pulling the thing out, turning the lights on. And so the one girl gets, I think, cut in half. The one girl goes ejected, goes flying out of the windshield. It gets ejected from the windshield and just goes flying.
The other girl,
one girl had her
leg severed off.
She had her leg out the window, and you get to see it just go and go flying out.
And then the next one is a girl. So the car crashes right through the other car, and the tire just boom right over her face.
And her face.
You see it all, and it's so gory. But that's exactly
it's Grindhouse.
That's Quentin Tarantino. But more than that, that's Grindhouse. That's what this whole movie, and especially the first half, is all about. It's all about those brutal deaths.
It was good. If the movie had ended there,
it was really good. Then they all die, but he crashes and he goes into the hospital, and there's a short scene with the sheriff and everything, and how the sheriff, he has a very sneaking suspicion that this guy killed this group of girls, but he can't prove it. So he says, all I can do is make sure that he doesn't step foot in Texas again. I don't know what that means. Maybe he bans his license. I don't know. It's not important. But he just says he's going to make sure he doesn't.
There's a 6 month time skip after.
And then it shows up. I do like this. It's a little kind of a cheeky thing to do where it's like Lebanon. So it's like, they're going to Lebanon?
Yeah.
And then comma, Tennessee.
Yeah, that was close.
Yeah. So
now we're in Tennessee.
And this, in my opinion, is where the movie falls short.
It was 6 months, right? It was a 6 month time skip?
I think so. Yeah, it's a pretty decent time skip.
No, it was longer. It's a 14-month time skip.
It could, I don't honestly remember.
I think it was 14 months.
But yeah, this is.
I'm thinking the 6 month time skips in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is why I'm getting. It's a 14-month time skip. So this is a year later.
Yeah.
And now he's in Tennessee. And he basically tries the same shit. It's
a new group of girls.
Cut this short. New group of girls.
But what makes them different? So a quick thing, so it cuts to black and white for about 10 minutes, and then it cuts back from black and white into color, but what makes this different is that all of the film damage effects are gone. There's no more stuttering. All of those cool aesthetic choices for Grindhouse are gone. So that's kind of your first hint into this is a new take,
which is double-edged in my opinion.
Yeah,
it's double-edged because once you get to the end of the movie, it makes sense why that stuff's gone.
Yeah.
Because this second half is more of a deconstruction of the Grindhouse genre, where they flip it. So it makes sense why it was removed, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. Because I liked it. I liked the effect and the stuttering, and I missed. It was immediately noticeable that it was gone.
The only important thing to really establish before we get to the chase scene at the end is that these women they work in movies. So one of them's an actress, one of them is a makeup artist. Those aren't really important, but the two are stunt women, and that's what's important because Stuntman Mike obviously is also a stuntman. So we can skip forward because in my honest opinion it's not bad, but it lacks the quality that the rest of the movie does.
It's like starting the movie over again too in the middle of the movie because now we have to establish new characters,
and it's the same conversation
where they're talking about you should have sucked the director's dick, or you should have fucked the director. No, the director fucked another guy on my birthday. Fuck him.
It's all the same stuff that the girls in the beginning were talking about. So it just feels like retreading. So this time it's like, all right, we get it. Let's move on to something new. So then what gets exciting though is that these stunt girls, they get a muscle car, they're just wanting to test drive it around, and they're driving it around these hills in Tennessee, and then it's revealed that Stuntman Mike has been chasing them down.
Real quick, it's important. They do
ship bow or something weird like that. Basically where she sits on the hood of the car and she's holding onto these belts and she's just going along for the ride on the hood of this car as they drive around. It's this thrill. They're thrill seeking pretty much.
Ship's mast. They want to play ship's mast.
They want to play ship's mast. Okay. Yeah, so that's important too because it ups the stakes. So they're racing around, and then Stuntman Mike catches up to them, and he starts bashing into their car and everything, and there's this chase scene, because they're like, what the hell? And the chase scene starts with Killer Mike, shout out Run the Jewels, Stuntman Mike chasing down the women, and they're trying to escape him, and then what actually happened? They stop.
Okay, real quick.
Yeah,
the crazy thing here.
Oh yeah,
this motherfucker told me that they did all this shit.
Yeah,
so go watch Death Proof if you haven't seen it. And if you have seen it, all that shit with Zoe on the fucking hood of the car. They did all that. That was all real. That is all practical. Now, whether they actually did that at crazy high speeds, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I do know it's real because you can see.
They were actually hitting the car with her actually on the hood. She's actually sliding around.
Because she's an actual stunt woman.
Because she's an actual stunt woman. Yeah, and she plays herself.
Zoe Bell.
Yeah. So, that's kind of sick.
Yeah, definitely really cool. There's a lot of points to this movie just because of that chase scene and how it's all practical and they did it all. Yeah. So they end up stopping. I think I don't know. To be honest, I don't think it really matters because they stop and Stuntman Mike gets out and he's like, "Oh, that was fun, ladies," and everything, and then he gets shot.
They just kind of both spin out.
Yeah, that's what it is. They both spin out.
And then he gets out
and he starts
to make
bragging and he's kind of making a joke, and then he gets shot in the arm because the one girl's packing heat, and then just a fun little detail is how the whole movie is very charming, but very he's very dark and brooding and everything too. Like he's definitely a predator, like he's looking to kill people, and then when he gets shot and the shoe's on the other foot, he's whining like a baby. He's in his car and he's like, "Oh no!" And then he's like,
"Oh my god! Oh shit! Oh no! I can't!" He's like freaking out.
Yeah, he's freaking out because he's actually the victim and he can't handle it.
Yeah.
So then what happens is he takes off after being shot, and this is where the flip really
This is
happens.
where the flip happens.
Is they're like, fuck it, we're going to go kill this bastard.
Yeah.
And then they start chasing him down. So he's, you know, trying to escape with his life, and they're chasing him down, and it's really cool. The whole chase scene, you know, it goes on for, what, probably a while. The chase scene does go on for a while. And they chase him down, and finally they crash into him, and they send his car flying in the air, so he is, you know, he's done. He's down for the count. And they drag him out of the car, and then they just start beating the shit out of him.
They beat the shit out of him.
They beat the shit out of him.
And it was immediately noticeable, and I'm going to bring this up now. They do the cheat. I know it was immediately noticeable with the punches. I don't know if you noticed, but they cut a frame out. Well, maybe even 2 or 3. I'm not 100% on how many. But when they throw their punch, they're here, and right as it's about to connect, they're suddenly here, and he's already like this. And so it's like, boom, right? And it made their punches look like they had more crack.
Yeah.
But it was noticeable, like very noticeable.
But maybe that goes back to Grindhouse too, I guess, because that's what it's all about. You know, is those cheap.
But at this point, we're already. That's true. Like we're deconstructing Grindhouse. We're flipping Grindhouse on its head.
That's true.
So I'm not sure why they chose to do it that way, but they did. It's noticeable. I think they maybe cut out like a frame or two too many.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so they beat the shit out of him, and then he falls to the ground, knocked out, and then it comes up, death proof, and then it starts to do the credits.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna end.
And it cuts back, and it's just
they fucking kill him.
Rosario Dawson's character
dead.
goes up and just axe kicks him in the fucking face.
And he's fucking dead. Like clearly it's like some sort of mannequin or a fruit
you can
or
see
something,
his
but
face
his face gets squished in. Her foot goes into his face and into the connects with the ground. So like he's fucking dead.
Yeah,
he's dead.
And then that's when it ends for real. And
then the
outro song. I don't remember.
and it had the classic freeze frame where they're like,
and then
it freezes,
and then it ends,
and then it comes back.
Goes back to the credits.
She kills him.
Which also, I really love the outro credit song. Actually, "Chick Habit." I can't remember who sings it, but I really like that song. Yeah, it's a pretty damn good song.
Overall, decent movie.
It is still a good movie. I mean, it's a Tarantino movie, and none of his movies are bad.
Yeah.
So I still, if someone were to say like, "Oh, I was thinking of watching Death Proof," you know, for a good time, I'd be like, "Yeah,
why not?"
Yeah, I don't want to say too much more because this will play into the ranking. So,
real quick, worst case scenario, you kill 2 hours. You know.
Yeah.
Would you rather watch a still decent movie that's like entertaining, or would you fucking rather like turn on the TV and watch some bullshit fucking cop procedural?
Yeah, the worst part is you have like a 30 to 40 minute section where it feels kind of boring because it's all of that setup, and it's like.
But then it builds up to a really good car chase.
And the first half is really good.
Yeah,
like I cannot stress enough how much I like that.
The first half is really good.
Yeah. And
then the first half of the second half
is not very good.
So the third quarter of the movie is kind of
meh.
Only because I think it's like a reset. I feel like if it wasn't a hard reset, it'd be fine. If we'd already known these girls, it'd be fine. But we had to establish them. We had to get to know them. It was basically it's basically 2 short films stuffed into one.
Yeah.
And I think that really slows the pace down
until you get to the end, which is them.
Which is then great. The last quarter,
because it's different.
The car chase. It's different. Yeah. I refuse to say the words.
Subversion of expectation.
I'm killing you.
Alright, so on to the next one. Inglourious Bastards.
Time to kill some Nazis.
Yeah, once upon a time in Nazi-occupied France. This is a damn good movie.
Okay, real quick, before we get into it, it's fucking great.
yeah. This is
Brad Pitt kills it.
And so does Christoph Waltz. It's so good. I actually have to go back to my notes a little bit because I wrote so much for this film. Yeah, it's the perfect blend of humor and suspense and action. Like the suspense is so good in the beginning scene, so good. I love the music too. This is one of my favorite Tarantino films for the actual soundtrack. Yeah, like when it starts and it plays, I think like Green Leaves of Summer.
I don't want to jump ahead.
So good.
But there, we'll get to it.
Yeah,
I think Hateful Eight has a great soundtrack.
But yeah, it's really good. And then just all of the performances are really.
They're all great.
Yeah, they're all awesome.
They're all great.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about Tarantino. If it's like the way he writes his dialogue, or if it's the style he has as a director, if he just like knows, like if he's good at like reading people. I don't know what the fuck it is, but he brings out the best in whoever he puts in front of that camera.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing in this film is there's so many standout scenes. Like the three off the top of my head is the intro scene where it's Landa and the farmer, that whole scene. Then the other one is when they're in the basement bar, all of those guys. Yep. That is an awesome scene.
That is a great scene.
The other one is of course the ending.
Dude, and the way
in the theater.
Okay, real quick, the way they like find out that he's a spy and everything, like it's so clever.
Good.
It's just
man. It's so good. Cause it's just this suspenseful scene the whole way through, and then you get the payoff where it's like, well, I guess there's only one thing left. And he's like, what's that? Say off weed is saying to you, Nazi balls. And he shoots him in the dick, and blood goes everywhere, and then there's just a shootout.
That movie is visceral.
Yeah, definitely.
That movie is very visceral.
Yeah. The other thing that I really liked about this movie too is it's probably my favorite use of color in all of his films. I don't know what it is, I just love all of the color that they use, the color palette in the whole film. Like the one scene that really sticks out to me, or the one shot, is when Shoshana is standing in the theater, and it's that circular window, and you have like the gold and then her red dress and everything. Yes. But also the beginning with the green from the fields and everything, and the trees, and just I love the color palette of the whole movie.
And even in that bar scene too, like it's very like dark and earthy colors, lots of like browns and stuff.
Yeah, I love this movie. It's so good. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what else to say besides
me neither, because it's so good. And another thing too is that immediately when you see Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France, it immediately lets you know that this is a fairy tale. This is a war fantasy.
Yeah. None of this actually.
It's not a historical war movie. Yeah. Which I really like. It's a really nice touch.
It's not. It's nice because it lets you know, hey, I'm not gonna try to be something I'm not. I'm just gonna be like a cool war movie about like World War II and all this stuff. Yeah. Unlike some of other movies, which are still really good, but they try to come off as like real.
Yeah, like Saving Private Ryan is a big one.
Ryan, Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, a lot of the
they're
stuff
still
in there,
great.
both of those movies are phenomenal.
But this is what kind of, it differentiates itself from those movies by doing that.
Yeah. But those movies are clearly, like, they're trying to be as realistic as possible, whereas this movie's going to be like, nah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Christoph Waltz is so good. Like, the reason why he chose Christoph Waltz is because Tarantino actually needed an actor who could speak English, German, and French fluently, and Italian well. Not fluently, but well. And Christoph Waltz was one of the few people that could actually do it. And man, I am so glad, because now, like, that was a breakout role for him. And I'm so glad because now he's actually in a bunch of other movies. He's done more movies with Tarantino. Yeah. Like the next one we'll talk about. Yeah. Man, he's such a good actor.
That's another thing too I've noticed about Tarantino. He likes who he likes.
Yeah, definitely.
If he likes you, he works with you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He recycles actors all the time. He recycles crew a lot.
Yeah, he does.
Like that guy. Honestly, if you can get in with Tarantino, it's too late now. He's only got one movie left.
Yeah.
But if you can get in with Tarantino, man, you're fucking in.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of that, his editor, Sally Mink, she's done all of his movies up to Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
And then what's unfortunate is she actually passed away. She died, like, she was hiking and she, like, got heat stroke or something like that and passed away. But, yeah, you can... And what I really like about Inglourious Bastards is you can tell, and the way that it's edited too, is you can tell that this is almost the culmination of their collaborative, time together. Because it's so perfect. Like, when you think, like, if you were to ask someone on the street, like, oh, what's in a Tarantino movie? Everything that they would list off is in Inglourious Bastards. Like, the dialogue, the ultra-violence, the music, everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Which
such
is
a good
kind
movie.
It's weird that ultra-violence has become associated with Tarantino, because until Kill Bill...
Yeah, it wasn't really there.
He didn't really do ultra-violence.
Yeah, no, I was actually thinking about that last night. It's interesting
that
until Kill Bill, he didn't do ultra-violence. Like,
they
he
were
did...
very much character-driven narratives that had violence in them, for sure.
Like, the torture scene in Reservoir Dogs is violent.
Yeah.
When they shoot Marvin in the face, that's violent.
Yeah.
But it's not that ultra-violence that people think about
nowadays.
Nowadays.
Well, okay, when we went and saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there were those guys that left the theater.
Oh yeah, that's a good story.
There were those guys that left the theater. You go ahead.
There was two people sitting beside me, younger guys, but I think, and I don't want to assume, but it's fairly safe to assume because I'll get there in the story. But I'm watching it and they're sitting beside me, and after the second act, they were like, "Man, this is boring ass Tarantino movie," and they walked up and they left because they were talking to each other, and I heard that, and I was like, one, fuck you, you're wrong. This movie is great, and then two, they even missed. Because what they were probably looking for was, the over-the-top violence. And what makes it so funny and very satisfying for me, because it's like, fuck you guys. And then it's just a bigger fuck you because they missed they missed the actual ultra-violence.
They walked out right before.
Yeah.
Like right before it was
about
to happen.
15 minutes and they would have been there.
Their ultra-violence.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, since Kill Bill, all of his movies have had gratuitous violence in it.
Yeah.
So I suppose it makes sense for people to associate ultra-violence with Tarantino movies. But that's part of the reason I really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, was it felt more like a classic Tarantino, like Reservoir Dogs or
Pulp Fiction. Even Jackie Brown, you could say, because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a lot more mature too. Like it takes its time when it needs to. It doesn't rush anything, which is a lot. That's what Jackie Brown is kind of all about, is taking its time.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I don't know. I don't have a lot more to say about Inglourious Bastards. I love it, but
watch it if you haven't watched it.
Yeah.
And if you haven't watched it, shame on you.
Yeah.
Unless you're too young to have watched it, and then watch it.
Then you should still watch it. So then his next movie, Django Unchained.
Yeah.
Which is, I love this movie too.
Really good.
It's so good. Leonardo DiCaprio, first time working with Tarantino, and he's the antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
he kills it.
Yeah, he kills it. It's so good. And then Christoph Waltz makes a reappearance as Dr. Schultz, the bounty hunter.
And then, believe it or not,
so good. Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, you get Jamie Foxx
as the main character.
Of all people. Yeah, who would have figured though? Like, he killed it in that role.
Yeah.
He was so good.
Really good. Yeah,
I mean, it's not like a complicated role. Like he's kind of he's the quiet tough guy.
Yeah.
So he doesn't so much have to. But like, even being the quiet tough guy has more to it than just being big and scary and mean looking. Like, your facial expressions matter, your body posture matters, how you carry yourself when you walk and talk.
Yeah.
The few times you might talk as the tough guy character, that all matters. And so
Yeah.
he nailed all of it. He
Yeah.
nails all of it as this like intimidating, scary dude.
Well, and what's really interesting too is that when they go to these plantations, they say that we have to put on characters. So, like, when they go to Candyland, he's putting on this facade of being a black slave driver, which he's like, that's the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Schultz is like, well, then play it that way. Like, he's like, if you're going to play a despicable human being, then be despicable, right?
Yeah.
Which is really cool because it adds to it, where it adds a lot of layers to his performance, because when you see him, when you see him treat some of the slaves like, what you looking at, boy, and stuff like that, it's like, you can tell, like, it's like, that's not really who Django is, but he's doing it because he has to. It's the ends justify the means,
Yeah.
which is to rescue his wife. Yeah. This, I also put down in my notes here that this movie is probably the most like Pulp Fiction in the terms of pacing, where from the moment it starts to the moment it ends, it doesn't end. It has just this kinetic energy to it where it's just go, go, go.
Yeah.
Like Inglourious Bastards slows down to build suspense, right?
Yeah.
But this movie never slows down. Like, it is 100%.
Well,
There's energy the whole way through.
I don't know, the scene when they're all eating dinner at the table,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
they're at
suspenseful.
Leonardo's,
Yeah.
they're at DiCaprio's
Mhm.
kind of house or whatever.
Yeah. But
Like,
then they
that's-
say stuff and they start running their
Yeah,
mouth, and you
that's
can
true.
see Django, he
Yeah.
goes to reach for his gun
That's
because
true,
he
yeah.
can't take it anymore. So it's like, it could pop off at any
Yeah, no,
second.
that's true.
Yeah.
The studies, the payoff.
Yeah. And what I also really like about this movie is it embraces like those classic Western tropes, but it throws on a very Tarantino style onto it. Like the music is a big one. Like you
Yeah.
have Rick Ross in a Western. You have, the Tarantino violence. Because what's interesting is if you go back and watch the spaghetti Westerns, the violence is exactly like that, but minus the gore.
Mhm.
So Tarantino just adds in all the gore and stuff like that. So that's what's, it's a Tarantino
Fuck,
Western.
man, you want to know what else is brutal? The pit. Is that what they called it? The pit?
Jeez.
Holy shit, man.
Mhm.
That would be brutal as fuck.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing too in this movie is they have the ultra zooms where it zooms in really quickly on the
Yeah.
character. Usually played for comedy, but also for character reveals.
I liked it.
Like the one that I remember is Candy's lawyer. He's like, "Oh, I do everything for Mr. Candy. I do everything." And then Django's like, "Oh, you could almost say you're," and then drops the N-word, and then
Yeah, that's
and then it does a an ultra zoom in on the guy's face, and he's like, "What did you say?" And then Dr. Schultz is like, "Oh, nothing. Don't mind him." And then it introduces Candy when they're at the back of the room, and he turns around, and then it does an ultra zoom in onto his face
yeah.
to reveal his character. And they do it quite a few other times, but those are the two that I remember the most.
Yeah, I like the ultra zoom.
Yeah, really cool. Just a cool style, very Tarantino. Yeah, the other interesting thing is this is the first movie where Fred Raskin edited it, and I don't know, like it does feel different to me. Not that it feels worse, but it does feel like Sally and Quentin didn't edit this movie. And not that it's bad, it just, I don't know, I was watching it and I was like, yeah, this does feel, it does have a different cutting style than Inglourious Bastards and
For sure.
Grindhouse. Like, it's a very small thing, but
Noticeable.
noticeable, especially when when you've watched all the other movies multiple times.
It's the kind of thing where, like if John Williams didn't do the score for a Star Wars movie, you'd notice.
Yeah, you would notice.
Maybe not everyone would notice because it's a subtle change, but big Star Wars buffs are going to notice because the music's not going to be quite the same. It's going to sound like
it's going to
John
sound
Williams.
the same because Star Wars has a style of music that they're going for, just like Tarantino has his style that he goes for. But when you take out that one element that's been there since the beginning,
and then you have a new element come in that's trying to clone it, basically copy it. It's not the same. It's
Yeah.
noticeable.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's really all we can say. I love Django. It's such a good movie. But yeah, that's really all I have left to say on it. We're getting pretty close to the end here, so we should
Last
talk
one.
about Hateful Eight
Yeah,
and then rank the
Yeah,
films.
our lighting's gone.
Yeah, it's getting kind of dark outside, so.
All right.
But it still looks okay. I'm just looking at the monitor.
The Hateful Eight.
I really like this movie, but it is very different from all of his other films in this.
Very different.
One of the big ones is this is the first movie that he's actually done a score for.
Yeah.
All of his other movies are soundtracks where he picks the movie. Sometimes, he'll get a composer to do one song, like a theme, but the whole movie, he picks things from a lot of the times from other movies, actually.
Yeah.
But this movie, Ennio Morricone scored the film, and the whole thing is scored. There's two songs that are, not scored. Like there's the one where they're in the chariot, which is an original song anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, you got Roy Orbison with
that song.
Yeah, that's so good. What a great way to end the movie, but really good. The other thing that differentiates this movie is it's shot in ultra-wide Panavision. So it's shot in 65 millimeter film, but projected. So when you're watching it, you see like 70 millimeter film. So you get like ridiculously wide shots. So then when you see,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like just the vistas and everything that they show, the scenery, it's just beautiful. Like when the movie starts, it looks so breathtaking. But then what also fits is when you're in the cabin, having all of these wide shots, even when we're focusing on two characters interacting, you can see all the stuff going on in the background with other characters. And that's what's really interesting because it really adds to the feeling. Like it's interesting because when it's the exterior shots, it serves the purpose of showing, just this grand landscape and how grand everything it is.
All that stuff.
But inside, it almost works to do the opposite because it's like when you show everything, it really puts into perspective how close all of these characters are. They're just stuck in one room.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
Never thought about it like that. That's true.
Yeah, so it's interesting. And I really like this movie. It's definitely there's a lot of comparisons, and I think rightfully so, to Reservoir Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think that does undersell both of them because they are very different. But I really like The Hateful Eight. I think I gotta look at my notes too because I have some notes for this one. Yeah, so the energy for this movie is a lot more methodical. Like it all builds. Have you seen this movie before?
No.
No? Okay. So that's what's interesting is because in my notes, a lot of this, it's all suspense. And then it builds to these plot twist moments, right?
Right.
That's the big thing and then when all these plot twists happen, it's like, oh shit. But in my opinion, just watching, actually let me backtrack. What did you think about the movie and all those plot twists and stuff?
What the fuck was I watching? An M. Night Shyamalan movie?
Yeah.
I mean, it was. They work.
Yeah.
They work.
Yeah.
But fuck, man, there's a lot of
twists
plot
and turns,
twists.
yeah.
Like, I almost want to say maybe to a more casual viewer,
Mm-hmm.
it might be hard to follow with all the twists that's going on.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, I didn't have troubles following it. I assume you've seen it before, so you didn't have any troubles following it.
Which I have an interesting point for that too.
But I could definitely see someone maybe getting lost in this movie.
Yeah, I could see that too.
Without.
Yeah, without really paying attention. If they're just trying to go into it.
Yeah, if you're just
more
trying to
casually.
if you're trying to get a popcorn flick, This isn't
this
it.
isn't it.
This isn't a popcorn flick.
Very character driven, very,
Yeah.
and then there is a lot of that, ultra violence.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's
so
popcorn
much
moments.
blood. By
There's
the end of the
popcorn
movie,
moments.
yeah, by the end of the movie, there's just blood everywhere.
Might as well just painted the whole set red.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me is I really like this movie, but because of the plot twist and just the inherent surprise value that comes in with plot twists, is that a lot of it a lot of your enjoyment relies on those surprises during the first viewing, and when you rewatch them knowing that stuff's going to happen, that's kind of when the movie it's not as exciting because you know what's happening. So I've seen The Hateful Eight now. This is like my 5th time watching it.
Jeez.
So I know exactly what's going on. So it's still good because, you have the good characters and you have, the violence that you can watch, and it's, it's just a well-made movie. But because you're not taken by surprise, a lot of that stuff, is not quite as entertaining.
This is the
because
kind of
what's
movie that's
happening.
best the first time.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
kind of a little
definitely.
bit worse each subsequent
Yeah.
time. Not because the movie itself
It's bad,
is bad,
but just because it does
the twists,
rely
it relies on the twists.
on the twists.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Because the allure of the movie is like, these are 8 mysterious people that are all, morally bankrupt. None of them are good people.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
make that very clear.
The
through
title
all
is
of their
called The
interactions.
Hateful
Yeah.
Eight.
Well, and they all have interactions with each other, and they're all not good.
They're all
people.
assholes.
Yeah, they're all assholes, except for Obi, but he's not included as the 8, because if you
Yes.
notice, there's 9 people.
Yes.
So Obi is the one that's not hateful 8, and he dies. Spoilers: he dies first, along with
Of course.
Kurt Russell. Yeah, but yeah, this is definitely one that it has less rewatchability.
You know what else?
Just because, or I don't want to say it has less rewatchability. It's just not as exciting on rewatches because of its reliance on plot twists.
You know what else I really liked about The Hateful Eight?
Mm-hmm.
The atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely.
The atmosphere is super good because outside you get all these whites because it's like the snow and all this shit.
Absolutely.
And then they're wearing lots of dark colors, lots of blacks and grays and browns and stuff. So there's lots of contrast. And then you get inside, they're just like these, you get inside and it's like very dark and gritty and low light. For not all of it, but lots of it.
Yeah. No, definitely. I totally agree. I love the atmosphere of The Hateful Eight. And this one is interesting because it's very much a Tarantino movie, but at the same time, it's very much not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, certain things are very different, and certain things are very much the same. Like your dialogue and your violence, right? We've been over this a couple of times. But the cinematography is a big one that's a lot different.
Yeah.
Just because of the wide shots and the editing, because they let all of the shots play out longer. That's the big one. All of the shots play out a lot longer than normal Tarantino movies.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's
movie.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally does. Huh.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those things that you notice
Yeah.
something's off. Oh, the lighting is.
We're almost done.
You notice something's off, but yeah, you don't put your finger on it until someone points it out, right?
Yeah. Well, I think to
All right, well, let's get to the list. What's your
let's
ranking?
get to the list. All right, so my ranking, number 9. So this is including Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Number 9, Death Proof.
Okay.
Number 7, Hateful Eight. Or sorry, number 8, Hateful Eight.
Okay.
Number 8, Hateful Eight. Number 7, Kill Bill. Number 6, Reservoir Dogs. Just a quick thing is 6 and 7 were really hard for me to rank, whether Kill Bill was better than Reservoir Dogs or vice versa. Eventually I had to go with Reservoir Dogs just because of my view on the pacing of Kill Bill, how I think if you look at it from the view of one movie, you could argue it's a tad long.
Okay.
But that's all. So 6, Reservoir Dogs. 5, Jackie Brown.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is interesting. 5 is Jackie Brown. And then when you go, the one that I'm about to say up to number 1 are so fucking good. All of these movies are really good, but these I would put on any time of the day, any day of the week. Number 4, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Number 3, Django Unchained. Number 2, Inglourious Bastards. And number 1, maybe not a surprise, Pulp Fiction. Now, I'm interested to hear your ranking now.
Our lists are actually pretty similar. Not exact, but pretty similar. For me, number 9, Death Proof.
Yeah, okay.
I feel like the reset halfway through the movie really hurts it, and I missed the loss of style from getting rid of the
in the first half.
Right. Getting rid of the kind of film grain, film damage effect. I missed that. So that really hurt that movie for me. So number 9, Death Proof. Number 8, for me, unsurprisingly, Jackie Brown.
And you are in the majority for that actually.
Really?
Death Proof and Jackie Brown are usually at the bottom.
For me, to be honest, I almost put Jackie Brown below Death Proof.
Yeah, and some people do.
For me,
because Death Proof at least has those Tarantino qualities that people think about.
My big thing for me, so those ones were really close, and the big thing for me was that the big reason I think I liked Death Proof was that it was this kind of the big reasons I liked Death Proof were the grindhouse parts at the first half. And if I only like half your movie, and I like it because it's a genre you're not known for doing, then I don't know. It felt like it needed to be below, because Jackie Brown, at least, it's much more Tarantino.
Very cohesive.
Very cohesive.
Compared to Death Proof.
And the heist, I really liked the heist. I thought it's a very clever, low-stakes heist. Very well done. Okay, so then number 7 then? 9, 8. So number 7, Hateful Eight. Same, pretty much for similar reasons. It's really good. All these movies are really good. It's just some are better. And number 6 then, for me, is Reservoir Dogs. I actually really liked Reservoir Dogs. I didn't think I would, especially after the opening credits. Because I fucking hate that shit. Don't ask me why. It's just annoying. It's like it's like getting in the car with someone and they're a new driver and they're like tapping on the brakes when they're trying to go because they're fucking nervous. That's what opening credits are for me. I just internally I'm just like, okay, let's go. Okay, let's go. Okay, let's go. Get to the movie already. I'll watch the credits after, because I'm gonna. But then I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved it. I thought the characters were great. I loved the idea of telling a heist backwards. It was super cool. Number 6, Reservoir Dogs. Number 5 for me is Kill Bill.
Okay.
Basically
flip for
flipping.
You. Flipping
because I am an action movie lover, and I fucking love Kill Bills. They're both fucking great.
Well, you like all those kung fu movies too and stuff. I do too. Movies. But I know you really love them.
It is really dark in the frame. Alright, so real quick, this went on longer than we thought we were going to go.
Had to turn some lights on.
We were using daylight as our light.
And it's dark outside.
It's fucking dark as shit. So now we're randomly sitting in light.
Yeah. So sorry about that, but at least you're focused on the conversation. You're not here for breathtaking cinematography. So.
Yeah, we're totally not filmmakers, no. So I love those, back to this. Number 5, Kill Bill. I love action movies. I'm a big action movie buff. That's kind of what I want to really focus on and get into choreography and shit like that. If you fucking want to ask me about that shit, do it. Because I fucking love talking about that stuff. Kill Bill, great. I loved it. totally for me. But I think the movies above it are just a little bit above it.
Fair enough.
So that's why it doesn't get higher on the list. So number 4, our top 4 is actually pretty much the same. Because number 4 for me, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, okay.
So fucking good.
Yeah.
So fucking good. Which just says how good the other movies in this list are. Because this movie's so fucking good. And it's only number 4. Number 3, Django Unchained.
Okay.
Dude, that movie,
Yeah.
just, the style, man. It's got style. It's got swagger.
Well,
Is fucking great.
I think the one thing that puts Django above Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for me is how Django has such a focused story, and it's very easy to get on board with Django's mission. That's the big one. That's what I was getting to.
You know
is it's focused, and Django's mission very sympathetic.
He's
like
super sympathetic.
it's like kill all those slave drivers, rescue your wife.
You get behind Django like instantly.
Yeah, and Dr. Schultz, because he's kind of in the same boat.
Yeah,
because he's helping him out.
Like
on this
they don't need to take
rightful
time
endeavor.
like explaining his the reasoning behind why he wants to do what he wants to do. It's like, no, they're racist assholes that took his wife. Go
exactly.
kill them. Go kill them all. I don't fucking like it's so easy to get behind him. Maybe not.
Which also plays a part in Inglourious Bastards too for me. Same kind of reason. It's very easy to get behind their mission.
Number 2, Inglourious Bastards. Same thing. So easy to get behind them. It's fucking Nazis. Who doesn't?
Yeah, you got it. I mean, fuck them.
Fuck Nazis. Yeah, so it's a great movie, super awesome. It's got comedy, it's got action, it's got character, it's got style, it's got music, it's got it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 1, Pulp Fiction, which to be honest was actually, I almost didn't put this at number 1. I think I put it at number 1 mostly for A, nostalgia, B, it's classic. Like we were talking about before.
So you give classic points then.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
For sure. Like,
and I think it's hard not to, honestly.
You have to. Because
I'll be honest, I wasn't even born when this movie came out, so I can't even look at it from that
when
lens.
Did this movie come out?
1994.
I was born. Motherfucker.
But I couldn't even look at it from the lens of like seeing it in theaters. I
never saw it in theaters either.
I have only seen it.
But I mean,
after it's been regarded as a classic.
It's still a nostalgic movie though, because you hear about this movie growing up, the infamous briefcase. You see the briefcase all the fucking time. It is in like so much stuff. They reference the briefcase, and so it's just the reason I think you have to give a movie points for being a classic is because some things change over time. The dynamics, the culture, society, shit changes, right? Like we live our lives very differently from how people lived their lives in the 90s, you know?
Yeah.
People our age now in the 90s are not anything like we are now in 2019. So the reason that's important is making a distinction between cultural and societal differences is because movies play a big part in that. Movies can influence culture and society, but movies are also influenced by culture and society.
Exactly.
So when a movie comes out at a period of time that it's just phenomenal. It is so fucking good. Like people love that fucking movie for its time.
Yeah.
But then that movie can age like 40, 50 years later, and people still talk about how good that movie is, and you might sit down and watch it, and you might be like, I don't fucking get it. And that's just a thing of culture and
Well,
time.
because there's the risk of when it becomes so popular, everyone thinks that they're going to love it, because it's like, well, everyone says it's amazing, so
it's
this
like
should be my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's like when you overhype something, right? You're like, let's say for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you watch our video and we're sitting here, we're just like, it's so fucking good, go watch it. And you walk in with crazy high expectations that it can't meet. So then you're like, oh, it's actually down here, it's not as good as they said it was. You know? It's like that. But Pulp Fiction enters into that realm, I think, of movies that are classics, that it's a product of its time, but it's also an influence.
Yeah,
and its influence extends beyond its own time. Like I said, you see references to shit like The Briefcase in shit today, like Community in one of its seasons they do a briefcase-like thing and stuff like that. Like, it's everywhere. Its influence is felt to this day. And so you gotta give a movie points for that. If a movie can make such a footprint that it can be like that, you know, like your Casablancas, your Citizen Kane, your, you know, Singing in the Rain, some of your more modern ones too, like Fight Club. I'd say The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Going really modern, I'd put The Dark Knight in there.
Yeah, I'd put The Dark Knight in there too, for sure. But yeah.
Anyways, movies, like, you gotta give them points for that, and I think that edges it out over Inglourious Bastards just enough.
Yeah.
Not that that movie it's just so
like you said, it was hard for me too. Like I was saying, I said it already, but Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards, Django, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for me, are so fucking good. Like, all of the movies are great. I'm a huge Tarantino fanboy. I've seen all of the movies multiple times, you know, but those top four for me. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is interesting because I've only seen it once, so the ranking might change after multiple viewings, but so far it's up there in the top tier prime Tarantino film.
Yeah.
So those are our individual rankings then.
Okay, so
what I'm thinking is they're very similar.
They are.
So I'm thinking,
I think the big difference is where we put Jackie and where we put
Kill Bill. So here's my proposition to you. I would be willing to drop Jackie if we keep Reservoir Dogs above Kill Bill. I would be willing to drop Jackie Brown down to above Hateful Eight. Right above Hateful Eight. That's where we'll start there. We'll work from there. I'm just
what you're suggesting is Death Proof
at the bottom.
Hateful Eight.
Yep. Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, Reservoir Dogs, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and up. So that's my proposition to you, and you can tell me your thoughts. We still, obviously, we keep our own personal rankings, but if we were to say this is the channel ranking, this is what Too Sweet Productions says.
It's so tough to put Jackie Brown above. But I think that's like the best compromise we're gonna get.
It's hard because it's only two of us, right? So we can't do a vote.
Yeah.
You know.
A third person.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to look, because, see, it's hard for me to even drop Jackie Brown down that far.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy to me. I actually think, and like, I did enjoy Jackie Brown, but I actually think it's my least favorite Tarantino movie. And the only reason I put Death Proof lower was for the reasons we talked about. Like, it lost its style and lost its charm.
Yeah.
And I didn't like...
So you enjoyed it the least, but you think it's a better made movie sort of deal, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think I enjoyed Jackie Brown less than Death Proof.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think Jackie Brown's a better movie.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So obviously our four are set because they're the exact same.
Yeah, those four, those aren't going anywhere.
So, all right. We keep Reservoir Dogs above Kill Bill. Oh man, but it's the same for me. I don't know if I can put Jackie Brown underneath the Hateful Eight.
Really?
And you're like, I don't know if I can keep it above it.
Really?
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors, you for it.
Okay, so you're cool then with keeping Reservoir Dogs above Kill Bill, just one above?
As long as we drop Jackie Brown down, yeah.
Okay.
But rock, paper, scissors, you for Hateful Eight versus Jackie Brown.
Best out of one or
best out of three?
Best out of three. All right. See, this is the science that goes into our ranking review. All right, rock, paper, scissors. All right.
Yes!
So the official Too Sweet ranking for Tarantino, all the Tarantino films are Death Proof, Jackie Brown,
9,
Hateful Eight,
7,
Kill Bill,
6.
Reservoir Dogs, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Django Unchained, Inglourious Bastards, and Pulp Fiction.
So that's our
Ranking and review of all the Tarantino movies, including Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So thanks for watching. Because this is YouTube, we gotta say all the YouTube shit. You know, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and yeah, we'll be back hopefully for more.
Hit the bell.
Oh yeah,
to get
hit the bell, all that shit.
Our videos are. We're just starting this series. This is
Yeah,
the first series.
first one.
First episode in our Too Sweet Review
Yeah,
series.
hopefully we'll be back for more reviewing whatever. Well, like I'm up for doing TV shows, movies, whatever.
Yeah. Let us know what you want us to
Yeah,
review
let us know what
next.
you want.
We kind of want to do the idea of the series. This is one episode, but the idea of this Too Sweet Review series is that we'll review a franchise as a whole.
Yeah, each installment has
each
their own
installment
episode.
will get their own episode in the future.
This was just a test bed, you know, kind of putting it all really putting it all in a pot and seeing how it all boils together, you know.
So let us know.
The stress test, really.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
You want us to review next.
Yeah.
In the comments below.
Oh, and also let us know what you thought about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And fuck it, let us know what you thought of all the other Quentin Tarantino movies.
Give us your lists.
Give us your lists.
See if your lists are as similar as ours were, or maybe yours is fucking wild.
And see if I'm
hated Pulp Fiction or something.
And see if I'm out of my fucking mind for liking Jackie Brown as much as I do.
Yes.
All right. This is Too Sweet Productions, signing off.